You hear that? The sound of bold ideas.
Welcome to the UX Rotterdam Podcast. Today we are recording in the usual in Rotterdam. And in this podcast, I will talk with designers, leaders, and other creative thinkers who are shaping how design, technology, and human experiences are evolving, especially in times of rapid change. And in today's episode, my guest is Peter Boersma. Peter, welcome.
Dankjewel. Thank you.
Peter is an independent design ops consultant with a long career in UX, which we will talk about later on. But first question is always, Peter, what is your connection to Rotterdam?
Yeah. As someone who moved to Amsterdam after his studies, I grew up in the north, I studied in the east, and then moved to Amsterdam. Rotterdam has always been the other big city, and a city that's still actually pretty high on the list of places to visit and to explore and to do things in. And I think I'm doing some of that list right now.
And we will talk about your role in the next coming UX Rotterdam event later.
Yeah.
So you have a long career already in UX.
Yeah.
Can you tell a little bit about the beginning and what are you doing at the moment?
Yep. As a kid, I was good with computers. I had a little home computer and I was writing software for me, for my brother, and then at some point for others. I got published, some of my software was published. And remember, so I'm old. This was when my computer had 16K of memory. And if there's any logo on the screen, or if you can imagine any logo or any picture, it's probably bigger than 16K. But that was the total amount of memory that I had. So I had to be an efficient coder. I was enjoying this, got money to buy a bike from publishing the software. So it made sense that I started computer science when I graduated from high school. And then I found out that computer science is all about the inside of the machine, about the gray box, about the cables, the chips, and how one computer can talk to another computer that's far away. And I was interested in the people that I was helping by creating software. So I put together a program, got a signature from the dean to focus on what I then called information ergonomics, designing information workplaces. And that was a good thing because nowadays all of our workplaces are information workplaces. We all work with information to do our work. It's often with the help of a computer, but it's not really about the inside of the machine. It's about what's on screen and what kind of experience it creates for you. So I graduated with a master's in computer science or information ergonomics and started working at internet agencies. I designed the first websites for the Chamber of Commerce, for ABN AMRO Bank, for the Audi Netherlands first websites.
What time are we talking about?
In 1995.
Okay,
so
that's 30
years ago. Yeah. And it involved some level of coding, but I sort of negotiated with one of the founders of my first employers that I would not code 40 hours, which is what he would like, not 10 hours, but maybe 4 hours a week. And I did, and I kept it up a little bit. But I was mostly interested in designing interfaces. So I was an interface designer or interaction designer or information architect or UX designer, which at some point became the name for the field that we're all in. So I moved from agency to agency, but at some point I realized that this whole idea of pitching for an assignment, doing a quick and dirty job, and then sort of praying that the customer would at some point ask you to do more work was not my ideal way of working. So I moved in-house. I joined companies that were producing software, like nowadays SaaS software, that had a small or larger team of designers who were working with engineers, with product managers or project managers, who would get input from sales about what the customers were asking for, who would get feedback from customers, what they were doing with the software. We would visit customers, we would do usability evaluation, and make smaller or larger increments to products. And in the meantime, I realized I had this urge to take a step back and make things better for designers, either by creating a template for a deliverable that we were producing a lot, or agree with engineers on what we would deliver and when they would review our work and stuff like that. So agreeing
at that point, you were already becoming a manager?
Also, but it was sort of two different things. Yes, I was becoming a manager, first a mentor, then a manager, and at some point manager of managers, so a director of design. But I also went into the operations side, what we now call design operations, which was about improving the circumstances for designers. And I found I had that urge. I started negotiating when I joined a new company and said, I don't know what you want me to do, but I will definitely improve our design process or improve the relationships between designers and engineers, because I felt that was the right thing to do. And at some point, I got the opportunity to be heavily involved in design operations in one of my employers at ServiceNow. And then my next job was design ops manager.
So let's take a step back.
Yeah.
You're already talking about design ops, but maybe in short explanation, what is design ops for you?
So I keep trying to find shorter descriptions. Nowadays, the shortest description that I have is raising the maturity of design, which goes from craft, like designers doing things better, design careers, so establishing design career ladders, processes, tooling for designers, measuring the work of designers, and creating a design culture. These are all aspects of design operations. So a slightly longer definition is improving the circumstances for designers and the design organization as a whole. So also making sure that design is placed well in the org chart or in the ways that products are being developed.
Because is it still necessary? We're talking about 2026. Is design still necessary to grow in a more mature environment and convince stakeholders that we are doing an important job?
Yes. In too many places, design is still seen as like executional, put the pixels in the right place, add some color, make it look good, instead of helping decide whether a product has the right impact to the users, and makes the product work better.
No, but for me it sounds like this is something which you can only spread out in bigger organizations. Is design ops also useful in smaller companies like startups or maybe small agencies?
So as soon as you have more than one designer, the designers need to agree on a process, on terminology, on who is more senior than the other, on which skills they have, which skills they want to develop, which skills they are missing, and they are responsible for showing their impact and maybe measuring their impact. All of those, and finally, culture. They need to start. They need to agree on why working at that particular company, which could be a startup or a larger company with just a small design team, why working at that company is different from working at another company as designers. So building some kind of design culture. And then storytelling, all of that, telling stories about the impact of design also becomes a shared responsibility. And it helps if you take a step back with the two of you or more to define what do we need to do to make all of that real.
Yeah. So in your experience, when did you realize that this machine or movement was going more and more important in your daily operations?
Let's see. I'm going to say pretty early on. In around 2000, I was working for a company that had bought several studios across Europe. And suddenly we had more colleagues. So instead of with a company of 50 people, we were a company of 500 people. There were quite a lot of designers. They were all working in different ways. And there was sort of a centralized effort to align the work more. And I joined that effort. First as a local contact and then as one of the coordinators of this effort. Mm-hmm. And this was like in 2000, and we rolled out a design process with deliverables, databases, examples, training, and measurement, ways of measuring the way design was being done. A side benefit was that the reporting about the design was also the same in all these different studios, which management enjoyed, mm-hmm. Which the design leadership enjoyed because it was comparable work. Designers could learn from each other and could potentially work on each other's projects. Yeah. This was a good effort, and this was, like I said, 2000. Yeah. And I've been doing that kind of work ever since.
And when you started with this topic, did you have difficulties to convince your management, your stakeholders about the importance, but also what it can reach?
Sometimes. So sometimes the work needed to be done sort of guerrilla style, in between other work. But usually design leadership, which at some point I became part of, was feeling the pain. So design ops is not just for designers, it's also for the design leaders and for the peers of the designers and the design leaders. And design leaders were also feeling the pain. They felt they were losing overview of the work that was being done. They were having trouble planning the right amount of work for the next quarter. Because they didn't know what capabilities were, who would be involved in projects, what work was still in progress, and which designers were still involved in work from the previous quarter. So these overviews were often missing. The same with skill sets. If sales or product management would say, "Hey, we should move into this direction. We should be more like we should use more animations." They wouldn't know which designers had animator skills and could be put on those kinds of projects. Yeah. The same with usability evaluation skills and stuff, research skills. Skill overviews were often missing. Career ladders were unclear. So if designers would say, "Hey, I think I'm ready for a promotion," it was up to the design leader to say yes or no, but not based on anything that was written down, anything that was fair, anything that was structured and was sort of seen as beneficial to the company. So all those basic frameworks were lacking for design leaders as well.
So where do you start? Because there are a lot of frameworks, there are a lot of processes already, let's say,
in place,
there's more knowledge about design ops nowadays. Yeah. Let's say I'm working in a startup. Mm-hmm. Where should I start, or what should I start with?
Okay, in a startup,
let's say there's nothing.
Yeah. So if, like I said, as soon as there's two people, you need to agree on things. So let's assume that in this startup there are two designers or more. Scale up. If it's just you, you can sort of do whatever you want and have verbal agreements with others around you to do things in a certain way. You don't have to worry about career ladders. It depends on who you're reporting to, but somebody at some point will say, "Hey, we'll give you more salary," or from now on you're a senior designer or the solo senior designer. As soon as there's more than one, it helps if things are written down. So as a small team, I would definitely start working on terminology, agreeing on what you call things, agreeing on when the work that you gave a name needs to happen and who should be present. That's the very first steps for a small team.
And then let's say you're growing, and then suddenly the team is existing of 5 designers.
Then things like career ladders become relevant. Culture definitely becomes a thing. If one designer leaves and another one joins, you need to explain them so it's like the mores, the rules of how you operate and why you operate that way and why it may be different from other companies. Onboarding, so helping with onboarding becomes crucial then, and that means that it helps if the design process is documented. It helps if past work is documented well and findable. So if there's some kind of wiki with past work that's available, and not just a drive somewhere or multiple drives everywhere. It helps if the expectations of the people around designers are aligned to what designers want to do and think they can do. So, this becomes a design leadership responsibility, working with peers in engineering, in product management, in quality, in the domain experts that are probably in-house on expectation management. And it helps to start telling stories about the impact of design. Depending on the culture of the company, it could be numbers. Like, we contributed to raising this metric 15%, or there are 1,500 new customers that are using this feature that we just launched. 1,500 paying customers, yay! So telling stories, and it could be numbers, it could be stories from happy customers, from customer feedback that you're getting from the customer service center, positive or negative feedback, or less negative feedback, more positive feedback. That's the kind of things that you can start doing in bigger teams.
Sounds like almost a separate expertise. So maybe also a personal question to you, since you are a design ops specialist. But are you still involved in design projects? Are you still involved in the content of let's say the design perspectives?
So let me give you an example. When I worked at Miro, the whiteboard, digital whiteboard company, digital collaboration company, I was the design ops manager. I was supporting 45 researchers and designers and writers. I didn't have time to be involved in product design. There were Slack discussions and where a designer would propose 2 designs and say which one is better, or show a problem and asked for input. And every now and then I would share my experience. But it was not my responsibility, not my job. It was not my job to design flows, design interfaces.
But don't you think it's difficult, because as purely from the design passion perspective, you would like to know more, or maybe sometimes have a review or see the progress in projects. But then you're like sort of outside layer. I'm
still involved in, again at Miro, I was still involved in, for example, defining the design quality, which quickly turned into product quality. And defining design quality is a lovely exercise. It's an amazing exercise that requires, I hate myself for saying this, product taste. It helps if you have experience with what was seen as good and seen as bad. If you can find the terminology for defining what is good product design for a certain company, for a certain context. That's, for me, that's close enough to design. The same thing with planning design work and scoping it and defining chunks of work that are meaningful, that can be assigned to someone, that aren't too dependent on other people's work, or sometimes it is dependent on other people's work, and then you deal with that. Those aspects of design are what I'm passionate about. And I discovered that during my career. I realized I've always been doing this for a little bit. Even when I said about the home computer with 16K of memory, I was creating tools that helped me develop software better. I was making a tool to define a sprite with a joystick so I could work faster. I was improving the circumstances for me as a designer already. And this was when I was 14 or so. These aspects of design are what I am passionate about. I still care about good product quality. I still care about involving the user in every step of the way, user-centered design. But I'm totally happy with focusing on the operational aspects, the improving the circumstances for other designers. Whether I am 100% design ops, or nowadays a design ops consultant, or when I was a manager, or even when I was just a beginning designer who took a step back and looked at why are we doing things this way.
Yeah, and the why question is obviously a big part of being a designer.
Sorry, I don't understand.
Asking the question why.
Oh yeah. Yes, every designer should question their ways of working, question their ethics and morality and stuff like that. But at the start, why am I doing this?
So does it make your work as a design ops manager more difficult? Because if everybody asks why and nobody agrees, but then
that's what it's not their job then. And this is an important thing. Design ops is not something you can do alone. If I happen to be a design process freak, so redesigning or documenting a design process, I love doing that. Let me do that. Culture building, maybe not my strength. So I will need others to help define what will be a good culture, or what are aspects of good design culture in this company. Let's work together. And then I may be just a coordinator. I say, we're going to spend 3 weeks on this, and then it should be done. And who else should be involved? Let's put a team together, write a briefing, and let's do this internal project to define culture, or define the process, or define career ladders. It's not something a design ops person can do alone often. This is also why it's okay that the responsibilities for design operations are, or for executing all of the design ops initiatives, is distributed over multiple people. It doesn't have to be one person who's solely responsible for all the output of that improves the circumstances for designers. So it's not something you can do alone. It has to be done together. Period.
Let's talk about the impact and maybe more concrete the results of this, implementing design ops in your organization. Can you share a little bit from your experiences? What can you measure? What is the impact in real improvement? So maybe a story from when I was at ServiceNow. ServiceNow is a software provider for workflow software. It helps teams in companies follow suggestions for process to get work done. That company was for 12,000 people when I joined, and still growing. There were about 375 designers and researchers and writers. And there was a design operations team that improved the circumstances for those designers. One thing they did was, this is where some people say, eat your own dog food or drink your own champagne. We used our workflow product to design or to document designers' workflows, including steps where there were sort of reviews. The design ops team was in charge of documenting this workflow and maintaining this workflow and determining and making sure that people followed the workflow, followed the process, including organizing review moments. And those review moments, a first review moment was sort of a conceptual design review. What are you thinking would be the right direction for the solution? And are your ideas sort of in line with, for example, the design system? Are you planning on using components that are already in the design system? Do you know about all those components? Or do you know of this other team that's doing something similar? Can you work together with them so you're aligned and you don't create two different experiences for users who might be using both products? So this conceptual review was organized by this design ops team. So some of the design ops people were sort of the design police.
They would check the work of designers and see if it's going in the right direction, independent of peer-to-peer reviews or manager reviews or team reviews, product team reviews. They would check whether the quality would be going in the right direction, whether the design system was used, and whether it was in line with what other people are doing. That was that meant that from that point on, so after the conceptual presentation, there was a very good chance that the work would actually be useful, would be built efficiently, using the design system, was in line with what other people are doing, would raise the bar of quality for the team that was doing that work.
Yeah.
They also had to have reviews later, before it went to implementation. They had accessibility experts on the team who would review accessibility, proposed or expected accessibility of the solutions. So they were raising the quality of the work. Impact.
So raising the quality, streamlining processes, checking a lot of output as well.
And keeping overview for the design
I don't
leaders.
like the word design police, by the way, but how can you measure this? How do you show this in KPIs, for instance?
And at ServiceNow, the good thing was beyond the workflow software, there were also reporting features, so we could show graphs of timelines, resource usage, sort of were teams going through these quality checks, yes or no, and changes in that over time. So we could see whether things were going in the right direction with the help of graphs and everything.
Yeah.
This was good for the design leadership. They could show that people were following the process. There was less rework, because, like I said, later reviews would also involve the work of developers, and then reviewing their work to see if it was implemented well. So we could see whether the design that was being delivered was right for the developers as well. I forgot the question now.
Well, the proof,
Proof, okay.
How do you measure results, and how do you see it back in dashboards, for instance?
Well, so part of that I answered.
But let's go back also from emotional side. I mean, I already mentioned design ops like machine. Of course, I understand you want to streamline processes, you want to get more effective work or maybe communication. But a lot of designers are also, let's say, emotional persons. When people are working in an environment where everything is agreed or everything is streamlined, what does that do with the designer itself?
And so one of the reasons is, let me put it this way. Designers people often divide their work into a couple of P's. The P for process and the P for procurement, like getting freelancers in and budget and stuff like that. And there's also a P for people. And that aspect of the work deals with onboarding new designers, satisfaction surveys, skills, careers, etc. So one part of our design ops responsibility is determining whether designers are still happy at their work. If they're not happy because they feel constricted by the process, then sometimes it means you need to let go of the process a little bit, or you need to do some evangelization of these processes and systems and show why they're in place. If people then don't like it, I'm not saying they can go, but they can check themselves and say, this is why it is helpful, it is good, it means that my salary will be paid next month and the month after and the month after. If you are by heart an artist, you shouldn't probably be in applied design. So if you want to create stuff and only get feedback from the market, or you can be an artist.
Or become independent.
Or independent and create your own products and do that. But if you're a designer in a software producing environment, you need to accept that business always trumps everything else.
Yeah.
You can have the most brilliant design vision. If it takes too much money, or if it takes not a lot of money but is not a good investment, it's probably not going to happen.
No.
But like I said, I told you the story about my very first experience with documenting a process in this company that bought different studios. And we initially over-engineered the process. We made it too prescriptive. And we did evaluations, surveys about how people felt about this defined process. And they said it's too much, overwhelming, losing creativity, blah, blah. So we we let this go, and we defined a light version of the process that was received much better. So we iterate, just like designers, design ops iterates as well.
And that's also the process, right?
Yeah.
Improving by getting feedback.
So you mentioned the machine a little bit. I think like the software producing organization is the machine, and design ops is more oil.
Okay.
And sometimes you need to change the oil or use a different lubricant or something like that to make the machine run smoother.
That's a better metaphor, Peter.
Yeah.
Hey, and talking a lot about AI in this podcast episodes, also for you, the impact of AI in the design ops developments. What do you see?
What I see and what I hear is a lot of organizations allowing, sometimes encouraging individuals to experiment with AI. And with like everyone's trying out a few AI tools without a lot of oversight, without a lot of like, goals or metrics, just everyone experiments. You could use the design ops team to pick a few, evaluate many, pick a few, or maybe just one if it's a multi-purpose thing, that everyone can experiment with. So then you're mostly experimenting with what can this do for me instead of what does this tool do in general. So pick a platform, agree on how many tokens you buy or can be used for these experiments, but do it in a coordinated, structured way. That's the design ops approach.
Yeah.
You can even say, people, designers, you don't have to experiment with all of the AI tools and keep an eye out and get nervous about AI will replace me and my work. And let the design ops team evaluate the future of the tools that designers are already using. Most designers of digital stuff are using Figma nowadays, and maybe Prototype or something like that. So a limited set of tools. The providers of those software have teams working on AI features that will be coming into these products. There is already Figma Make. Miro has prototyping functionality, has research summarization functionality. The tool makers are building AI into their tools. If you're a little bit patient, just keep on working with what you do right now, you will, in the next release, have access to AI features that are made fit for purpose, that are evaluated, that they are integrated already with the tools and the workflows that you're using. Just have a little patience.
Yeah. So, but what's the role of the design ops manager? Looking for overview or creating new possibilities?
Definitely making sure that AI experimentation is done in a structured way, so that it's not an unstructured, uncontrolled environment where sometimes something very creative might happen, which sometimes is super brilliant, but often it's a waste of time, and I'm going to say that. So doing it in a more structured way, picking one tool and agreeing on a contract with the provider so that everyone has access to it in the same way, in a structured way. You can measure usage, stuff like that. That is one way. Evaluating tools and the future of tools that people are already using to see, should we turn on the AI features in Miro, yes or no? and if so, which ones, if that can be controlled. That is something that a design ops team can do to improve the circumstances for all designers, to improve the AI circumstances for all designers. I'm not saying design ops should slow down everything, but definitely keep the overview and do it in a structured way so that everyone benefits.
Yeah. And you, as the godfather of design ops, if you would recommend one, let's say, impactful advice to organizations who are willing to invest in design ops, what would it be?
So at UX Rotterdam this year, I will be talking about design ops roadmaps. And establishing and maintaining a design ops roadmap is something that I feel strongly about being a good coordination device for design ops activities. So it is a first initiative, establishing a roadmap for design ops, so that work is done based on input from others, that is done in a structured way, that there is an overview, that you can write briefings for individual projects on the roadmap for the team that needs to do it. Like I said, design ops execution of design ops initiative is a shared responsibility, and you can define metrics for each of these initiatives to determine progress and to show impact. So a roadmap that says this is what we're going to do for these reasons, and this is the contributions to the business that we expect, and this is the state of things, is in my view the best design ops initiative that you can do.
Thank you, Peter, for this great and learningful conversation.
You're welcome.
If you want to know more about Peter, but especially if you want to see him live at UX Rotterdam, go to our website, www.uxrotterdam.com. My name is Nauke Leon, co-founder of UX Rotterdam. Hope to see you next time. Stay curious.